अस्सलाम वालेकुम फ्रेंड, उम्मीद करता हूँ आप सब खैरियत से होंगे जी। मेरा नाम है जी अमीन कशी। आप मुझे देख रहे हैं यूट्यूब पे और फेसबुक पे जी। मेरे फेसबुक पेज का नाम है जी अमीन कशी 2.0। जिन भाइयों ने फॉलो नहीं किया है, गुजारिश है फॉलो करें जी। आज का टॉपिक बहुत ही अहम है जी, कनाडा इमिग्रेशन और इनकी जो पॉलिसीज़ को लेके जी। अभी रिसेंटली एक अपने देसी भाई ने जो ओंटारियो के जो प्रीमियर हैं जनाब फोर्ड साहब, उनसे क्वेश्चन किया जी कि ये जो नए इमिग्रेंट्स आते हैं या जो नए बच्चे आते हैं स्टडी परमिट पे, ये कनाडा में विजिट वीज़ा लेके आते हैं और आके अपने बैक होम लाइसेंस को ट्रक ड्राइवर लाइसेंस में कन्वर्ट करते हैं, तो उसके बारे में आपकी क्या राय है? तो उन्होंने ये भी बताया जी कि जो नए ड्राइवर्स होते हैं जो स्पेशली कनाडा में आगे ट्रकिंग के फील्ड को ज्वाइन करते हैं, इस प्रोफेशन में आते हैं, तो उसके बारे में आपकी क्या राय है? क्या आप उनको फ्यूचर में लाइसेंसिंग इशू करेंगे विजिट वीज़ा पे ओंटारियो में या बाकी प्रोविंसेस वगैरह के अंदर? तो उनका जो रिस्पांस था वो सुनिए आप। थोड़ा सा इंग्लिश में होगा, लेकिन ये कि मैं साथ में इसका जो उर्दू में जो सब टाइटल होता है वो भी ऐड कर दूंगा, ताकि जो भाई इंग्लिश ही समझ सकते हैं उनको उर्दू में समझ आ जाए। ठीक है जी।
On that. Ontario is the only province where a visitor can take a commercial truck driving license. And we can't say nobody knows it, everybody knows it. Why can't we ban that visitor? Because many of the accidents we see on the highways, this may be one of the cause that untrained drivers are on our highways. And also in the Service Ontario and where the driving license centers are there, many fraudulent people are operating, adding fake experiences, making dummy driver licenses. And we personally, we reported this to police also, gave the name of those people, those who are doing this. So we need a legislation on this also, that these fraudulent people and these visitors, how can they drive commercial trucks on our highways? This is the biggest road safety issue. Thank you, Premier.
Well, thank you so much. I think it's a real skill set to be able to drive one of those tractor trailers. And they're big pieces of equipment, and you have to be qualified. It has to be legal. There's no lying on applications, or we need to deal with it. It's very simple, and I know the minister's doing a great job. I've talked to him about the driving schools 100 times, about 100 times, and or 101 times. But I'll pass it over to the minister. He's quite familiar with this.
Thank you for the question. And obviously, a major issues are ensuring that safety on our highways, and something that we are absolutely going to be taking very seriously, reviewing all of our commercial licensing as well. And I know you've brought this up in the past as well before. First and foremost, we want to make sure from the comments with respect to any individuals involved on whether it be Service Ontario or drive test in any criminal manner, that will be investigated fully, and we will cooperate with if it's the police, our own internal ministry, to ensure that any sort of fraud is handled immediately. Visitors in this province or would be illegal to drive without a work permit. So absolutely, if there's any loopholes there, we'll definitely be fixing those and making sure that should not happen and cannot happen. And we will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that where that is occurring, it is investigated, and that we also come down very hard on that or move forward on legislation that would close that gap or restrict that from happening further in the province. So I will take that back and continue to work with our team to have a resolution very shortly.
अच्छा जी, अभी एक पार्लियामेंट हिल है जी, ऑटवा जो कनाडा का कैपिटल है, वहाँ पे लिबरल की रीट्रीट हुई, मतलब मीन्स के लिबरल के जो एमपी थे या मिनिस्टर्स वगैरह थे, उनकी मीटअप हुआ, मीटिंग हुई। तो उसके अंदर जो ये वाइड जो साफ़ी हैं या जिनको आप कह सकते हैं मीडिया पर्सन है, इनके बड़े टफ क्वेश्चन है जो कनाडा इमिग्रेशन के जो मिनिस्टर हैं मिस्टर मार्क मिलर। तो ये इनकी ज़रा बातें सुने, ये लड़की उनसे क्या सख्त किस्म के सवाल कर रही है, और भाई साहब के जॉब सुने ज़रा इमिग्रेशन को लेके कि कनाडा में ऑलरेडी हाउसिंग नहीं है, जॉब्स नहीं है, तो आप धड़ाधड़ बंदों को लेके आ रहे हैं कनाडा में। तो आने वाला टाइम है जी, बड़ी सख्त रूल्स और जो रेगुलेशंस हैं वो इम्प्लीमेंट होने वाली हैं, बड़े सख्त किस्म के लॉज पास हो रहे हैं। तो अल्लाह खैर करिए। ये पहले आप इनकी वीडियो देखें, बाकी इसके ऊपर हम बाद में तबसरा करते हैं।
Joined now live by Immigration Minister Marc Miller. Minister, good to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me, Vashi.
I want to start off and ask you what the objective of these changes are, particularly with the temporary foreign worker program. Is it, for example, to address remarkably low youth employment rates? Is it more broad than that? Like, when this is fully realized, what is the goal?
Well, it is broader than that. We've seen recent youth unemployment rates jump. Earlier on this year, I announced the reduction of temporary workers in this country from 7% to 5%. What that looks like is a lot different than just temporary foreign workers. Temporary foreign workers are a very small part of that pie chart. International students, the postgraduate work permits that come with them, the humanitarian efforts that we've deployed to welcome Ukrainians here, they all form part of that category. So you can't just send people back to Ukraine and say this is all solved. We have to actually do this in a surgical way that makes sense for Canadians, but also makes sense for the economy. In the temporary foreign worker space, people working in the agricultural sector, transformation in Tim Hortons, we've seen an overheating that needs to be adjusted ever since the end of COVID. And that's something I think every Canadian expects us to do. Those numbers do affect affordability, and not all those people can become permanent residents. So the announcements that we made today, that Minister Boissonnault made today, are sort of a smart reflection of what we need to do to ramp that down back to what looks like pre-pandemic levels. It isn't the end of the story. Getting from 7% of the population to 5% is a much more significant step than that. I still have adjustments to make in the international student program. I made some significant ones in January, but it's part of a total package that we are continuing to deploy. Most measures of which will be out by the fall. The Bank of Canada said that the measures that we've taken to date are not sufficient to getting to those goals, but there are initial ones that I will announce. I took one 2 weeks ago to prevent people with labor market impact assessments that come here on visas from getting jobs. If people are here to visit, they shouldn't be working. So that's sort of some of the measures that we'll be announcing. We have announced and we'll be announcing again in the fall.
You demarcated the end of COVID, right, as a sort of a point at which things started to accelerate. Is it fair of Canadians to ask now, if you're undoing a lot of that, why the undoing didn't start earlier? Because, for example, if you look at temporary residents who hold work permits, that number has increased by 150% over 2 years. It was 60%, not just low wage, I'm speaking more broadly. It was up 60% last July, year over year. Why did your government wait until just this January to start addressing one stream of it and now to address the rest of it? And could you not have addressed things earlier in order to mitigate some of the issues your Canadians are now dealing with?
I'd say 2020 hindsight is always something we can indulge in. As a thoughtful government, you always have to reflect on what you could have done faster, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I'd simply say this, the labor shortages that we saw even a year ago are no longer there. Markets are contracting, labor markets are contracting, and there's no longer the needs for the people that we were bringing in those amounts to be here or to come to Canada. That's just reality, and I think everyone expects governments to adjust.
But did the need exist a year ago? Are you asserting that it did?
It's very possible in some areas it did. I think now it's quite obvious that we do have to adjust. As a minister, I have a responsibility to look forward and figure out what we need to do next to make sure that we have a number of temporary workers here.
आपने ये वीडियो देख ली होगी और यकीनन आपको समझ आ भी होगा क्योंकि मैंने इसके साथ उर्दू की जो ट्रांसलेशन होती है वो भी ऐड की है जिसको सबटाइटल कहते हैं.
This is the situation that they created. They miscalculated how much immigrants they want. They miscalculated how much housing they have, how much they could accommodate over here, and now they are blaming all it on us. Right now they are blaming like these immigrants came here and stole our jobs and do this and do that, but we are not the culprits here. We are the victims.
Do you think there is too many people in Canada? Do you think there are too many international students? Do you think Canada should have more? Or would that make your life more difficult trying to find a job, for example?
Actually, the problem is not the immigration over here right now. The situation is the geopolitical situation right now, as we can see. They first they invite because of the COVID, the Canadians were not willing to work at that time. They were afraid for their life. So for economy to keep on running, they need immigration at that time so that they could work and keep the economy running. Even like the students, they bring money also with them when they came here. Like we did an initial investment, my tuition fee was 3 times what a Canadian would pay over here.
तो जी हाँ, आपने ये वीडियो देख ली होगी और यकीनन आपको समझ आ भी होगा क्योंकि मैंने इसके साथ उर्दू की जो ट्रांसलेशन होती है वो भी ऐड की है जिसको सबटाइटल कहते हैं. तो उम्मीद करता हूँ जी आपको आज की वीडियो अच्छी लगी होगी. अच्छी लगे तो एक थम्स अप ज़रूर दे दें, कमेंट भी करें और जिन भाइयों ने चैनल नहीं सब्सक्राइब किया वो भी चैनल सब्सक्राइब कर दें.